Ron, welcome to SEO Gurus.
Hey, pleased to meet you. Thanks for the invite.
Very cool to have you on. So, Ron, SEO's rapidly changing as always, right? And every Google update seems to be as disruptive as the last one nowadays. Give us some insights from your expertise on 2024, and let's say at the time of recording around late 2024, right? How do you create content that drives traffic and attracts leads? And what exactly is the problem? How exactly are you solving that problem at ContentMender?
The big thing is basically building content that's relevant to the audience and not just what we call, and we see a lot, is like the pump and dump strategy. You know, back in the day, a lot of people used to just build as much content as they can. They didn't care about the quality, pumped it out, tried to, rank for all these various long-term keywords or whatever, and just have more content on the website. But we found out through the last, decade that, the more quality-driven the content is and is coming from an expert voice within whatever specific industry, it helps just drive more and more relevancy, more and more quality, more and more eyes. So, Google's biggest mission is just to provide the most valuable information to the user. And if you're doing that through your business blog or any kind of article creation that you're doing, that's what's going to drive ultimately, your readership, your website views, create loyalty, and, become lifelong customers, which is the goal of everything.
Super cool. And I mean, pump and dump in the world of AI, right? That's just on another level now, I guess, right? Like it's infinitely easier to pump and dump content on your web pages.
Yeah, we actually saw this with previous clients that went full, quote unquote, full AI, and they weren't given any kind of personal touch to it. And they just kept, blowing out these AI-driven pieces. You could tell by the quality of them that it wasn't, very strong content. And within the automotive industry, we had one huge client do this, and their rankings within 6 months just tanked, like really bad. Or they had to solve some divisions. It got really bad from an internal business perspective. And they were fueled by content basically for their last, decade or so. And then they want to save a little bit of money, pumped it in AI, thinking it was the best thing in the world, which it is good if you use it correctly. I think it's the best thing in the world for anybody. But you can't just, go into ChatGPT, create a prompt and be like, all right, create this about this, and then expect it to, do so well ranking and then actually retain those rankings.
So what does quality mean? Is quality like the voice with which it's written in, or how do you define quality on-page SEO content though?
Quality for anybody should just be like very deep knowledge of the subject they're talking about. So again, I'll go back to like being in the pest industry. You got to understand certain things about every pest. Or if you're in the automotive industry, you got to know the little nuances between, two different cars, two different types of engines, whatever the actual criteria is. And then the other part of quality is speaking within your brand's voice. So however your brand portrays itself, if it's a super fun brand that's, providing information in a geeky way, you gotta stick with that. So once your target audience understands the kind of quality you're producing, you kind of got to be consistent. And that's what makes quality, because consistency proves quality, and obviously big, deep knowledge of the subject, and then providing valuable insights about something that nobody else does. So that's where the deeper knowledge of having the correct writers comes in, having the correct information that you need, and actually matching that with what search engines and users are looking for through tools like SEMrush or whatever, to see what kind of, quality content you could actually produce that's actually going to be with the writers or readers and then resonate.
So it's more about the quality of the content is like actually the expertise that needs to go into the content. Is that the right way to summarize it?
Another good way to look at that is basically always try to adapt to Google's EEAT, and the first two, experience and expertise, are always on top. So that's what you want to do. But again, providing the deep, valuable insights that only your company should be able to provide because you have this certain knowledge and value set that makes you different. That's what you always want to be, throw it out there in the world and just keeping it rolling and rolling and rolling and coming.
So EAT, that's great. Can we go back to that again? So that's expertise,
experience, expertise, authoritative.
Is it fair to say that in the world of the AI, that just becomes more and more important? Because, I mean, AI is going to have a common experience and expertise, And then to differentiate on your website, it's really about having your specific expertise, I guess, right? How do you do that through writers, though, and agencies? Because if you take on a writer, they're by default an external party to that, right? How do they fit into that? How do you get external help on that?
That's one thing where we differentiate. I have a few, full-time writers on staff and managers, but we actually work with dozens of other writers. So if we're working in one specific industry, again, I'll go back to automotive industry, like you have to find the correct person that has the knowledge. So we try to match writers with the clients versus the other way. So a lot of people they have one writer on staff that's writing about 10 different subjects a week, and that's really not applicable. I mean, there's certain people that could do it, and I know some of them, and they're genius. So if I find them, or if you're out there, hit me up, because I try retaining that kind of talent. But it's super impossible to, struggle all with this. So we try finding, the correct writers in this space. We build them up and we teach them our process of how we create content, how it goes through like our 7-step editorial process, et cetera, et cetera. And then that's the writer that works with that client for the life of that client's contract, or, however long they're with us.
And so you have to kind of develop that expertise, I guess, over time, right? Like it has to come in through things. And then the content needs to also be specific to that customer's expertise as well, right? So that writer presumably would have to learn everything about the customer as well, right?
Big part of that is like we'll give like content intake forms to like clients and prospective clients, or even like right when they become, and then we actually work with the writer through that. Whatever other questions they have, we want to match voice and everything, but we also want them to be the best they can be. So if you're a founder of a company or a CMO or whatever, and you're running the whole show over at whatever business, we try to get them on these monthly interviews with our writers, just to give them whatever updates they have, whatever specific value they're trying to add. And then we create the content around that, get it approved, and then just roll through the phases.
When you take on a client, right? So let's not talk about it in terms of like you guys taking a client on specifically, but generally, if I wanted to start my SEO journey as of today, and I needed to create an entire SEO strategy, which I presume is the first step, right? You need to understand what is that expertise content. You need to understand how do you find the topics that are ranking or people are searching for, right? How does one go about creating an SEO strategy from scratch? Like, what are the steps there?
From a content perspective, you get a big overview of the landscape for whatever industry it's in. So you'll do a little bit of competitive research, even though we don't rely on competitors much, because then you go in that wormhole of just chasing bottom pricing like people do all the time. So just get the big old landscape and then use a tool like we're big fans of SEMrush and or SEMrush, however everybody pronounce it. I heard 1,000 different ways over the years. But we'll do a lot of research around the main topic, all the longer term topics, to just keep building out keywords, topics, strategies. And we still like a pillar, like a topic cluster strategy, where we have a few main ideas and then we'll just keep branching out content around it and feeding it into the main piece. It's like the pillar strategy, as you want to say. But from an SEO perspective, again, it's building out those keywords, what keywords we want to rank for. And this is only on the content side. Then we have to figure out, okay, we have a strategy for the next quarter or 2 quarters. And now we have to figure out the amplification strategy, which will be basically like the social media outreach, whatever other, we're trying to do there. And then a big part of our content strategy is what we call awareness PR. But it's basically, it's getting out there and getting to the correct publications and getting them to share our content, because we're showing something different, unique voice. Let's get in that. And then on the side of that that's how we do our link acquisition too. So we build the links by getting authentic pieces of content published in bigger publications, and then podcast interviews, whatever's needed to get our clients out there.
But bring that into a bit more detail there for me, Ron. How does one go about understanding the landscape specifically? If it's not competitor analysis, and you're relying on these tools, what are you looking for? Because I don't get a subscription to SEMrush, Ahrefs, whatever, right? What is it in there that you have to look for to help define your strategy exactly?
Basically, what we always start with is the general keyword rankings. So that's where we want to see what's going on in the whole landscape. So like if you were looking for, again, like a pest control company, you got to see what's out there in that whole landscape for their local region. So again, that could be different because that's local based service. It's like they're in a target area. So that's it. So that creates a whole different strategy also, because now you got to look at your whole landscape, your citations, all the other fun stuff. But, that whole understanding what you could build on the website, and then you got to step back to the business side of it and be like, okay, what's your highest profitable? We always start with profitability, and we want to convert those leads the quickest. So that's the way we're going to develop our initial content strategy and our SEO strategy. So we can actually make the client money. So like you could chase vanity metrics all day. Like, okay, I'm ranking for this keyword, but it's getting 2,000 views per day, but I'm making 0 cents on it. So it's like, well, that piece of content really doesn't make sense now. So we're always trying to push them towards to re-examining their business and then translating that over to an SEO, strategy. And then that moves into the content strategy.
Hey, if you're still listening to this, you probably find this conversation interesting. And that means that others might too. So the best way you can support this podcast for free is to leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening to this show. This helps the podcast more than I could say. It means other SEOs can learn and get access to our amazing guests, and that will mean the world to me. All right, with that being said, back to the episode.
So, but it kind of goes both ways then, right? So you need to understand what people are searching for and then create content specifically for that. But then if that doesn't match what your business is communicating currently, then you kind of go the other way and say, okay, what we need to be communicating is this. Is that right? Do you have any cool examples of like companies that have just got that completely the wrong way around before in the past?
Exactly. Yeah. I won't mention them by name, but there was one, we work with a lot, again, this pest industry is ginormous, and there's a few, it's crazy how big it is. And I never realized that. And I have a friend that founded a company. So I started helping him out and realized like how big it actually is. But there's a few companies out there that are basically almost ripping these people off because they're working with like 12, 15, 20 clients in the industry. They're creating the same content and they're just replacing certain location words. So nobody's ranking for anything, and it's all pretty thin and cheap. But we saw one strategy where they were literally just, this one company wasn't even doing like bat control, and they had like 25 pieces of content on there about bats. And they're like, oh yeah, it's driving so much traffic to the website. That was what they told the client. I'm like, well, what's the point though? Why do you want to rank for this when you're not even, making money off it? And they're like, well, they told us that if we have this, it'll lead to them checking out this and that. I'm like, yeah, in a certain principle, but you just can't go so big on that. So you got to be super targeted with, what you're doing. So a lot of people make that mistake where it's like, I'm driven by content marketing, SEO. We don't do a lot of social media. We amplify it. We give strategies, and I don't do paid ads. So I'm not going to have 25 pages of content about Google ads on my website, So it's like, that's just what we see people making the mistake. They want to have so much quality or quantity of content, and then they forget about the target of what's actually making the company, money. Whatever affects the bottom line is what you should be focused on with your SEO strategy and your content strategy.
So that company that seems quite ridiculous actually, that they had all these pages around bats and they don't even offer the service. Yeah. So it's like, doesn't make any sense. No, I mean, that just shows you, right? That's a great example of where strategy is actually a really crucial step, and it's not just about chasing the numbers, but it's chasing the right numbers and the ones that are actually going to convert on the other side of that. I had something interesting that came across me the other day, and just for a note for the edges as well, we can cut this out if you don't have an answer to this, Ron. Is there like a scenario where you could rank high, but you don't see page views going up?
Yeah, I mean, we see that a lot with, it depends on how niche the industry is. So do you mean like a specific, key, like give me a little bit more there. Like, okay, we have like 1,000 page views and, there's still 1,000 page views, but we're not at number one for the term. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, correct. So like page views stayed at 1,000, but you were moving up the rankings, but nothing changed. Even your ranking number 1, number 2, where previously you were 10, and then that didn't change the number of page views you got.
Yeah, we actually do see that bounce around a lot. So it depends. Like I work a lot in the motorcycle rental space also. And there's these top 3 competitors that will constantly swap the top positions. And it makes me so aggravated because I can never figure out how to just stay sticky here, and then we look at like the link profile. Okay, they got more links and we're getting this and we got more keywords in this article, but the actual page views aren't changing between these top positions. So I think that's more of a competitive angle too of what the other people are doing and why you're swapping positions. But a lot of the times, I mean, if somebody else loses that ranking factor, you might grab it, but the whole energy towards that certain page or keyword might just be not lacking now. So now it's the time to rethink it, maybe retarget your target keyword on that page and then figure out what has more search volume or what's going to eventually, not even worried about search volume, what's going to convert better.
So it could even just be that. So what I'm hearing, Rod, is that a lot of your focus is not just on getting high search volume, but really getting on the stuff that's going to convert. What can people do? What are the telltale signs that people out there have the wrong strategy and they're not focusing on the terms that's going to help them convert?
I mean, I always say your bottom line. Look at how much money did you make last week off this? And like we try to tally everything up where we show them, here's what you're spending on ad spend, here's your conversion, which is plain as day. But we track also our pages of like, the conversion pages, whatever, trying to show them all these metrics of like, okay, this came through organically. Here's what's converting. Here's what's converting better. So then we're always A/B testing terms, even words just on a meta description. Even though we all know it's not a ranking factor, it still influences that click-through. So, we're always trying to just focus here, focus there, A/B test stuff. And this is ongoing forever. Even when you find that one solid piece, that golden nugget, it might fall off in 2 months or 3 months. So it's a constant, constantly revamping, constant analyzation. It's crazy. You got to be madness sometimes to do this stuff effectively. It's because it's always in your head. It's like, okay, the ADHD really kicked in this time.
Yeah. So actually, it's not one and done system then, is what you're saying, is that keywords are constantly changing. Volume of search traffic is constantly changing to different keywords. And because of that, you have to, how adaptive does your backlink, is this only a problem for on-page SEO or does off-page SEO really move as quickly as well?
Off-page, we don't see movement as quickly. I mean, you could have a link as long as it's respect the relevant, high authority link and it stays there. That's not going to change at all. So it's more the on-page factor, I would say.
More the on-page factor, that seems to be the thing. So your strategy is real. So with the off-page SEO, because you still need relevant links, right? You need links in relevant domains. You can't just have high authority random websites linking you. You need relevant ones that are also around the same keyword that have links to other similar websites also that are creating content that's similar to what you're doing as well. So you need relevant links. But then are you saying that what we class as relevant for off-page SEO is just a little bit broader, and then as long as you're within the industry, that's okay? Whereas with on-page, you need to be a bit more adaptive to the nuances and the intricacies, and it's a bit more of a fine touch. Is that the right way to characterize it?
I completely agree with you. Yeah, you nailed it. So again, it's like that the external links coming in, as long as that publication is high quality, again, authoritative, follows all the EEAT. So again, you want that trustworthiness, the high authority, like these websites that are regularly well. As long as it's within your industry and it adds some values, I think it's always going to add value. And there's other SEOs. I mean, you have 10 SEOs in a room. Everybody's going to have a different thought process about, the way external links build. But I mean, we had some clients too that we came into and we looked at their link profile and you could tell that they were basically hiring a company that was just doing these guest posts. Buy X amount of links from domain authority 40 or above and spend $3,000 and here's your link profile. And sadly, a lot of the blogs that they were getting on, some of them are mom blogs talking about pregnancy and they were driving links for an auto part. It's like, well, they have a high authority. And I'm like, yeah, but it's going to hurt our profile in the future. So again, we go in and disavow, and that's another concept too. We can tell Google all we want. Do we know if we're doing it? We don't know. All we can do is track, watch, and figure it out. Pivoting. We're always pivoting.
Because you do a lot, you mentioned pest a lot of the time. We also mentioned automotive and motorcycle industry quite a lot. Ron, is there anything specifically interesting in the world of SEO around automotive and motorcycle industry?
Yeah, I mean, now with the SEO, here comes the whole e-commerce part of it. So technical SEO, we see plays a much larger factor. So you have thousands and thousands of products on here. You have to have a smooth, fast-running website, free of technical errors. And it seems like the more pages, the more products, the more SKUs you have, the more stuff breaks. So it's constant monitoring this. And then within the content itself, we found a lot of the most successful brands that we work with have like the libraries of content. Like one client we work with does probably around 30 new pieces of content per month, from guide articles to, how-tos, to talking about their products, their industry, their corporate responsibilities. And they're always updating their product SKUs and their category pages. But we found a big problem with a lot of the competitors is they don't refurbish or revamp their older content. So we're always revamping older content, and that's another big play where a lot of SEOs miss out, because they basically create new content every month, put it out there, and then what was created 6 months ago, they don't care. And it's very sad to see, because it's a lot more effort, but there's so many huge wins with just revamping an older piece of content. Even if you're just refreshing, some internal links and making sure the information's up to date, that could have a huge difference the way Google sees you.
So there's just a lot more, let's say, industry debt around this space. Does that sound about right? Yeah. Okay. Super interesting. Cool. Awesome, Ron. If someone was just starting out thinking about, okay, I need to revamp my content strategy, I need to think about this, I need to be a lot more engaged in the changes that are going on for the keywords that I'm trying to rank on, what would be your top tips, just off the cuff, that you would say, okay, this is the tenets of getting started?
Yeah, of getting started. First of all, have your strong keyword strategy already in play in your topics. And then immediately when you publish them, start monitoring those keywords and those pages, because you want to see how they're bouncing around, how everything's moving. What happens if you got a good PR mention at some very high respected publication? Within a few weeks, you might see that page jump because of that link going to it. So you want to keep monitoring and then pivoting from there. So you're always pivoting. So if something's working, it's great. Let's build upon it, drive more internal links to it, just do whatever. But it's just monitoring what's working and what's not working from a page perspective and a keyword perspective, and then making little tweaks here and there to see how it works. And understanding that if you make a tweak to a page today, you might not see a difference in rankings for 3 to 4 weeks or sometimes longer. So that's another thing that's really hard to explain for clients, especially new clients, because everybody wants to see their market spin immediately. And when, okay, I'll spend $1,000 in Google ads, they're going to see the immediately response, So it's, that's what people want, but we always are trying to stress this is a long-term thinking thing, and SEO compounds, as we all know. And I always do the analogy of Warren Buffett and his compounding of, money. That's always my big analogy with the way SEO works, especially when you're doing content, you're doing it consistently. So consistent content, that would be another big thing for them.
How important is consistency there? What does consistency look like again? So a lot of people hear that they need to pivot, they need to be consistent. What's the, let's say, maintenance standard for putting content on a website, in your opinion?
It depends on how, if it's a smaller niche local-based client, you could get away with 2 to 3 new pieces of client content a month. But we believe down to if you're publishing every Tuesday at 10 a.m., the second Tuesday of the month, you should stick with that. And we see a lot easier. It's not explainable because Google's not giving us any map, and we see other people do it differently and they're still doing well. But one of our big things is just a consistent content output all the time. So if you're going to be creating 8 pieces a month, you should be posting every Tuesday and Thursday, religiously at 10, noon, whatever time you find is most valuable. If it's a newsworthy thing, but most of our clients, it's not newsworthy. So, it's not trending news, so it doesn't have to be up like Search Engine Journal, Search Engine Land, both publications I write for. That's timely. I got to get this out there, wherever, because it's breaking news. Where a lot of these clients are talking about, again, how-to guides, or just putting, information about how they add value to their clients. So they should be doing this consistently. And then you can't fall off the wagon and all right, I literally post it, for 6 months straight every Tuesday, Thursday, and then all of a sudden you don't post a piece of content for 3 months. Slows the energy down. Google likes strong energy. They like seeing fresh content all the time. That's why, again, we talked a lot about revamping older content. That shows another signal to Google that you care about your readers, you're refreshing your content, you're giving the most valuable information at all times. So the more you see that, the users, whoever's on your website, the more they see it on their social signals, that all plays into each other.
Super cool, Ron. Awesome, Ron. Hey, thanks a lot for your tips. I think a lot of people learned a lot about content strategy here. And yeah, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Love what you guys are doing.
Hey, thank you so much for making it to the end. For more content updates, visit our website at ghapodcast.com, and don't forget to connect with me on LinkedIn for more tips and insights on SEO. See you in the next episode.